Good evening, everybody. This is Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission meeting. Today is April 15, 2026, and I call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Asking staff to proceed with the roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair Echelon,
Here?
Vice Chair Matipatla,
Yes.
Commissioner Ganga, Commissioner Wolf.
Here.
We have a quorum with Commissioner Ganga absent.
Thank you. That takes us to our first item for tonight, which is the approval of the meeting minutes of March 18, 2026 meeting. And we have received the draft agenda as part of our materials. I'm asking for either any feedback or asking for a motion to approve the draft minutes from March 18th. I move a motion to submit the minutes. We have a motion to approve the minutes as they are. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second as well. Excellent. That means we are ready for a vote, and we'll be asking David for conducting a vote on the motion.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
So I joined remotely from India, but I was a guest, right? So I'm not a commissioner, so I guess now I cannot vote on this, right?
You would probably need to abstain.
Abstain, okay, that's what I thought. It's
Kind of weird.
Okay, for approval of the March 18, 2026 Bike Ped Commission minutes, how do you vote, Chair Echelon?
Yes.
Vice Chair Matipatla,
abstain.
Commissioner Marcy,
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. 3 in favor, Commissioner Matipatla abstaining, Commissioner Ganga absent.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. That takes us to postponements. Do you have any postponements?
No postponement.
No postponements. Okay. That takes us into oral communication. This portion of the meeting is reserved for any topics that are not on the agenda tonight. And we typically reserve 3 minutes per speaker on any topics not on the agenda tonight. Do we have any oral communication tonight, either in person or remote?
We have one speaker in person, Marilyn Kang.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Andrew. I've been living just since.
My name is Marilyn. I was born and raised here, actually. I went to Spot Eaton, Hyde, and also Lindbergh, class of 2017. We both have greatly enjoyed access and use of the Ragnarok Creek Trail since its opening. And we both have lived near Wilson Park, which has several direct access points to the trail. And we know that our neighbors and fellow residents also really like to trail as well. And as young adults concerned about climate change, we'd like to share an idea that may help and what a sustainable city can look like. So we proposed a project called Natural Habitat Restoration at Ragnarok Creek Trail, where we can landscape California native plants along the trail.
So first I want to say the trail is great, huge fans, and I just want to say we want to make it better. Because climate change is making it harder for students to spend their time outdoors. Summer is beginning earlier, summer is ending later, and summer is getting hotter and hotter every year. 2026 was the hottest summer in recorded history. Our students depend on the trails to go to and from school, and we want to encourage them to use the trails and not punish them with sweltering heat. So the restoration project also gives students opportunities to actually play a part of being in the community. There is direct value for AP Environmental Science. It could be a low budget field trip to actually put their skills to the test. And for AP Bio, it could be an outdoor lab to study, say, ecosystem health, or something more simple. And it's also a perfect fit for the new Science and Society class, which is explicitly project-based. Students actually get to build a low water use landscape, which shows the world that we don't have to choose between having nice things and saving water. We can have both. And outside of the classroom value, Habitat Restoration Project also provides students with leadership opportunities and volunteering opportunities. And it also teaches them how to manage large projects and actually get things done. And also promotes the American democratic tradition of long-term stewardship of shared public spaces. So this is not an original idea. It's not. Mount Eden High School in Hayward actually just finished doing something similar, where they got students and teachers and parents involved, and they were all working together. So we live in Cupertino and we pride ourselves on giving our students the best American high school education in the nation. So we believe that this project helps us stay competitive and fosters collaboration at the same time.
So who might be involved in the Cupertino community? That could be Cupertino residents such as neighbors, community members and families, FUHSD and CUSD students, such as high school students, high students, Eton students, etc., and potentially other FUHSD and CUSD students as well, such as Lindbergh or Monte Vista. And as an alumni of these systems myself, I would have loved to participate in this kind of project if it was available at the time. So I think this would be a really great opportunity for our current students. And as Andrew mentioned, there's a lot of different classes that can, take advantage of this amazing, beautiful trail that we already have. So, and as Andrew mentioned, there is opportunities for us to become stewards, for these students to become stewards for this space as well. So all of that is to say that we're at the very beginning stages of developing this idea, and we're both very passionate about, navigating the local government. So if possible, we'd like to continue this conversation and we'd like to seek advice on who we would be able to speak to on this matter, whether it be yourselves, the commissioners of this commission, or Cupertino Parks and Rec, or another branch of city government. And I think we left our contact information with staff. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for leaving your contact information as well. Really appreciate it. Do we have any other oral communications tonight?
We have another available speaker to share.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm closing the public comment period for this meeting tonight. That means we are moving into our new business, assuming we have no old business. And that means we have our first topic, which is the fiscal year 2026-2027 CIP or Capital Improvement Programs and 5-year plan. I think we have a presentation prepared here by Susan Michael. Thank you, Susan. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Commissioner. Another one, John. All right. So good evening, Commissioners. I am Susan Michael. I'm the CIP manager. And we have in support back in the corner, Chad Mosley, Director of Public Works as well. I'm going to give you just a report on the current CIP, as well as the proposal that we made for this year's projects that is going to be presented to council in the budget cycle that's going on right now. I think the first study session is May 11th. So it's just a report, right? So the first thing I just mentioned is that there is a CIP webpage. If you navigate on the city's website to Public Works, you'll be able to navigate to this webpage. And we've tried to list as many projects as we could on here, so you can see it's a very good indication of what's going on. And I also wanted to share a list of all the current projects in the CIP. The color coding is just for help to tell what's what. The first yellow are the facilities projects. We have parks projects, infrastructure and streets projects are orange, blue are the transportation, and magenta are the sustainability projects. The active projects are bolded. There's the HSIP project where we're going to add high friction pavement to 17 different segments to roadways in Cupertino. That is almost going out for bid. The Tommy and Innu East segment, we finally have approval of the design concept from Valley Water. So we're working on the design documents for that. And the school walk audit implementation project. There's 2 projects that are ready to go, and I think that'll happen later in the year. Yeah. So just we presented our proposal for the CIP to council in March. And this was one of the slides from that. And we reported that the Stevens Creek Boulevard bikeway Phase 2A, which is from Wolf to Dianza, that is underway and it's supposed to be completed by the end of fiscal year, which is July 1st. I know now that it's probably going to go past that, but it's definitely going to be done by the end of the calendar year. So this is just some, one of the photos on the top is showing one of the potholes. We've done many potholes. But as you can imagine, the intersections, both Wolf, Stevens Creek and Deanza Stevens Creek, there's a lot of infrastructure under the sidewalk. So trying to put new poles in has been, trying great, lots of potholes. So we've got a good construction team that's working on it and, you'll be seeing more activity. So what did we propose for the fiscal year 26-27? We proposed, so additional funding for a couple of projects, but two, the top, which is the facilities conditions implementation project. We did a report back in 2018. It was updated in 2022. And it basically said we need to do a lot of work to our facilities. We're trying to do that work. So we've asked for another 1.25 million there to do fire alarm systems at a number of facilities and roofs, and it's just basic unglamorous projects. City Hall Annex is going along. That's going to be our new emergency operations center. We asked for additional funding for that because we know that project will be closer to $8 million. There's a couple new projects. The Blush residence, council asked us to add it after our proposal, actually. So the Blush residence is a house. If you go to the Blackberry Farm golf course, Blue Pheasant, you'll see on the right of the parking lot is a house, and it's boarded off. You can't see, but you can see there's a house there. That is a city property right now. It's not being used practically, and we've been asked to find out how much it'll cost and what it'll take to tear down the house and make it a new, very natural habitat park. And it's not gonna have playgrounds and things like that. It's meant to be just planting, natural plantings, do a very simple pathway through it. Very simple, don't overcomplicate it. So we're just beginning to scope that project. We were also asked for funding to renovate the golf course pro shop. If you've ever been there, it definitely needs improvements. And the sports center, the courts all need resurfacing. So that is also a CIP project, mostly because it's got engineering that needs to be involved. There is a project to work on the Stevens Creek Boulevard, State Route 85 northbound ramp intersection. And I'll talk a bit about that more in a minute. And we're also working on providing sound attenuation at Memorial Park pickleball. We have to rebuild the fence in order to put up sound panels. So the intersection at Stevens Creek Boulevard and 85, the ramps, right there, it's quite difficult to cross as a pedestrian or a bicyclist. So as part of the Westport development that's adjacent, the developers there were tasked with making improvements to the intersection. And they got stuck in the proverbial bureaucratic cycle with Caltrans, right? And they asked if they could give us the money cited for the project to take it on, and so we are taking that on. Because the Westport project is done. So that's what this project is. So it's totally funded by the developer in lieu fees, no city funds per se to do this project. And the other part of the CIP is we try to do not just this year's plan, but talk about where we think we're going in the next 5 years. And this represents that the first year shows the funding that we're asking for this year. Next year, we're gonna ask for another 1.3 million for the facilities project to do the fire alarm system at the library. That is a big project. And we are going to resume the funding, hope to resume the funding for the ADA improvements that we need to do to meet the ADA requirements. It's a kind of a federal mandate that we keep making improvements. We also have outfalls, storm drain outfalls that we are needing to make significant improvements to. So those are two ongoing projects that after this year, we'd like to resume. We have a budget of $2 million every year. That's what we've been asked to try to stay within. And of course, that will, that's where we tried to aim for future budgets. So as you can see, in future years, we aren't going crazy. We're trying to do the Blackberry Farm Golf Course irrigation renovations in year 3. And then council's asked us to consider doing park shade structures in some of the parks. They can be a revenue generator in terms of renting out picnic tables, but also it's just a good thing to have because there's, as you heard earlier, it's very hot in the summer. More shade is better for helping get people out. So that is the whole of the 5-year plan. I wanted to mention, where is the bike ped transportation 5-year plan? Where are things going? Because look on this page, there's no blue project for transportation. And the short answer to that is it's the active transportation plan. We're waiting for that to come out, and we know that from that we will have our best direction on what projects need to be tackled first, and what are our priorities of that plan. And it's available for questions.
So thank you very much for that. Do we have any clarifying questions on the presentation?
I do have a question regarding budget. I'm not exactly clear on the way you budget things. You mentioned here on the, I don't have the slide numbers, proposed financial year 26-27, the improvement on the 8.5 and section. You mentioned that the zero city, like $0 city funding, and the $600,000 come from the external funding. But if I look at just proposed CIP plan, what you're saying here is that the city is going to contribute every year 2 million, but these 600,000 are coming as in lieu, they're not coming from the city.
So the $600,000 was paid by the Westport Development Group to the city, and those are the funds that'll go directly to the project.
It makes it look like the city is paying for it, whereas the city already received the money. So it's like
It's a,
if you look at, for example, the other, I don't think that any of the, I don't know, but like all the projects that are listed here, like none of them received any other outside funding. So I think it should be marked, because in that case, if there's outside funding that mitigates what the city has spent, I think it should be made very clear here, because we're not talking about 600,000 here, we're talking about what, zero-ish.
so I think the best way to look at this is this page. So we do try to break it down, show the breakdown of internal and external. That help? I mean, that's what you're talking about.
So none of the other projects have external funding, but this one.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying here, that the slide, what we go on this 5-year plan, it makes it look like the city is actually spending something. It says funding 25, 27, 26, 600,000, but that's not, well, there is external funding, so that shouldn't be, actually, it should be marked as, yes, it's 600,000 that we have to pay, but oh, we received 600,000 prior to that, right?
It is. I hear what you're saying. If I put 0 here, then somebody else might have more questions about that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand.
It's trying to put the most pertinent information on a page, because there's a lot of information, right? And in this case.
Maybe a footnote
overall-
would help, maybe a
Footnote.
footnote would help.
Different clarify.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other clarifying questions?
Yeah, so I have a question. This is, you said that like from year 2 through year 5, we plan to kind of limit the budget to $2 million. But if you look at it, look through the row, the horizontal rows, there's not much dollars left out for any funding for bicycle or pedestrian or transportation in general improvements, right? So like what, 10,000 in year 3, right? There's like 270,000 or 280,000 in year 4, and maybe some left in year 5, right? So what, I don't know how is that like, you don't have to wait for active transportation plan because there was already a Vision Zero plan that was approved, which is a multimodal, transportation improvement plan that's including bicycle and pedestrians, of course. But why are we waiting for active transportation plan to really project the budget for the future years?
So, couple notes, we are actively pursuing a number of projects from the current bicycle and pedestrian transportation plans. As you know, Stevens Creek Boulevard especially. The other thing I would note is that to keep in mind, the capital improvement program at its core is about infrastructure and the non-glamorous projects, making sure the storm drains, the water, the trash, all the things that aren't glamorous are taken care of, roadways, sidewalks. It becomes more glamorous when you put in vertical buildings that people inhabit, parks, playgrounds, the places we enjoy and meet as a community. So what you see reflected in the 5-year plan is, the priority is accessibility, which, as I said, is a federal mandate that we continue to make improvements. And the outfalls is the storm drain, also very not glamorous. But it is something that we're at a point where we really need to take care of our storm drains. They're in bad shape. So that is the priority. As you can, so I will say that each year we make this 5-year plan, but every year when we come to the next year, things come into the list that we weren't expecting. So for example, the golf course pro shop and the sports center courts resurfacing was not on our radar in the 5-year plan previously. I think that we believe that it would be best to project new projects once the ATP comes out, because it will change everybody's perception of what was done 5 years ago or 6 years ago, whenever the transportation plans were done before. We do have more projects to do. We also don't have a great deal of money to do, let's say, discretionary projects. So it's just a balancing act at this point. I think we'll have more leverage to forward bicycle and pedestrian projects once we have the ATP to back us up, just to show the updated importance of those projects. Does that help?
Yeah, it's still an answer. You didn't answer the Vision Zero plan and the projects that were recommended in that plan.
I can't really speak to that myself. I mean, it's obviously a priority.
Mooney?
So I have 2 questions. So, Susan, on the proposed CIP 5-year plan, if I understood what you said correctly, this is the view as we know today, but this might change, when we look at it next year, because there may be more things, that'll come into existence as we go, right?
Absolutely.
So just because we don't see any projects, for next 5 years on the bicycle or whatever, or under particular category, doesn't mean that there won't be any for next 5 years, right? They may come into existence.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought too. Now, on
I
the,
will state that city council approves the final CIP. These are our recommendations for the next 4 years beyond this year. And you'll see that where we're leaning is trying to focus on the basics. Our CIP is very limited. We have major repairs in our buildings and our storm drain system. Those are our bread and butter, the stuff that we need to make sure stays in good shape. We don't have a lot of money for a lot of new things, but that doesn't mean city council can't come and say, we think bike lanes on Stelling are more important than other things, right? Just wanted to show that over the next 4 years, staff is recommending focusing on our existing infrastructure. That's why this is focused.
So basically, it's essentials versus luxury.
You said.
Okay, so on the 2025-2026 project slide, Susan, the ones that we have, the golf course, pro shop, sports center, court civic surfacing, and also, a pickleball court, all three of these projects, the close to $500,000, right? Is our city is funding, is that correct? All three projects.
Yeah. Yes.
These are great facilities for us to have for our residents to use. I don't use any of them, so that's why I don't know the answer. If you know the answer, please answer. Otherwise, I'll find out some other means. Are there any fees for, charging for non-Cupertino residents? Like, when people come to use it, is there something that says, if you're a Cupertino resident, it's free for you. If you're a non-resident, you pay a nominal fee or something. Just curious. Because I see that kind of thing in San Francisco, right?
And I can answer this.
Yeah.
Pickleball courts we're talking about are the ones at Memorial Park. That is a public park. We don't currently have fees for non-residents.
Okay.
There's been discussions about that, but that is a city council discussion.
Okay.
It's not answers that we have.
Okay, so I know it's not a decision here, but I'll probably write to city council asking to consider because there are few issues surrounding. I've seen our residents complain, our facilities are not available for them because there are people coming and, taking over. They'll say, no, I see disproportionate number of people coming and lobbying for this in the council meeting, right? When they're not residents. Right? So I'm all for spending our tax dollars for our residents. Others can benefit, enjoy, but not at the cost of our residents. Right? So that's kind of where my head is. I understand, I'll take it with the council. As a community member, I'll take it up with the council. Thank you.
I will state that the information that we've been provided that more than 50% of the people that are using pickleball are residents. I don't think it's a lot more, but it doesn't serve external folks. Counting more than residents. There are a number of residents that use those facilities.
Yeah, no, I understand our residents use, but also I hear complaints that now when our residents go, it's already taken up, right? So yeah, so I think, a small fee might go a long way in creating a room for, our residents, right? And others, are welcome to use it, but not at the cost of residents.
Was out there yesterday and there were at least 60 people out there playing and sitting waiver charges. They are heavily used.
Great, thank you, Lenny. Thank you. Anything from you, Mr. Joel?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So I'm trying to understand. So does this mean that we have like one obvious thing that jumps out at me is like phase 2B on Stevens Creek Boulevard. That I think the design is done, but is there any money for construction of that? There's no money, so that would be something that, but we don't see it on here and we'd have to figure out how to get the money to,
Yes, so
could be many years out.
with projects and grant funding, you have a better chance of getting a project once you have the drawings ready to go. And that project is in a good place to get grant funding. At this point, it is not, the council is against the project, phase 2B. At least that was my takeaway. So we're gonna finish 2A and then just see what opportunities present themselves, frankly, and see what funding becomes available, because once say Measure B and Caltrans, we get opportunities for funding all the time on those projects.
A
Yeah,
lot of different.
But they never fully fund it, do they?
Not usually.
80-20 sometimes, yeah. So, yeah.
And then the trip, Timian Emu Trail, is that we, no outside, no city money is required for that?
Presently, no.
So that could go. You could construct that entire trail without any city money.
Presently,
And that wouldn't be,
For clarity, we can't construct the entire trail. We have the east section, which is fully funded. Central section is partially funded at this point in time. The west section, we cannot be for it all.
is that true? No. We have $600,000 from Apple or third part?
No, we don't.
No?
I'll say focused on.
Oh, it's all in the east section, okay.
So that would mean for the central section, you'd have to ask for additional, we need to supervise those. You have to try to find more.
We would probably need to find some more funds. We have I don't know the exact number. We have nice portion of funds for the central section, but it's not enough to fully construct. Right now, we have it in environmental or is completed environmental. Once we finish the east segment, we're gonna take our lessons learned there, apply them to the central segment and begin our design concepts and design for that. Once it's fully designed, we'll be very eligible for additional grant funds. Again, with a lot of the bike projects or pedestrian projects, there is a lot of state funding for those types of projects. So what we're trying to do is get them designed to a point where they would be extremely eligible for those funds. So having in the design of the second or the central segment, once we have enough staff to be able to move that forward, we're going to try and finish that design. So.
So the understanding is that part, the east segment of the Tamian Inu is funded already.
Yes.
So it would be great to have that here because it's not very consistent to have a project that's funded here, that's listed here, and another one which is in the exact same situation that is not here. It would be nice to have that both of them because they involve some significant amount of money. They are CIP projects, so we should have all of them listed, not just this one here. Why not?
These are the new projects, new and additional funding, rather than going through the entire list. I think it's listed in the staff report, though.
It is page 5 of the staff report.
Yeah, I've seen.
Oh, so this is not inclusive of projects that have been already approved and that are already in the works there?
Yeah,
It's in the
It's a
PDF
little bit
document.
confusing, but
The agenda PDF document has, all the Timian,
They're included here, right? I didn't quite understand. That's helpful,
They're
thank
there.
you.
I have a question, Will. The process in general. So I'm gonna, there's a sentence here that kind of shocked me, if I may. It says phase 2B, including work at Bend intersection, is not currently planned for the 5-year CIP, funding resources and council support for the project. The backway on the protected bike lanes on Stevens Creek Boulevard have enjoyed support from council for a very long time. Most recently, last year in February, project 2A was approved. So the question is, where does it come from? Like, because my worry is that if you say we don't have council support, so we cannot budget it. If we cannot budget it, we cannot get council support because we're not asking their opinion in a council meeting. So it looks like a little bit like a circular thing where we're saying, well, we don't have council support, so we will not be able to ask for money, so we won't have council support down the road. So how can you help me understand what the process is to ask council for support for something like this?
Oh, yes, I can try. So we have, so this is one part of 5 parts that I do every year now, starting last year. Last year, you can find the CIP book has a lot of information about the existing projects. So for transportation, bicycle, pedestrian stuff, this has a list, information about the existing projects, information about projects that have been requested in the past. They're not on a current, that aren't funded, approved or whatever. And projects that are proposed for this year as well as the 5-year plan. And we try to give council and the community as much information as we can about the status of those projects. And that includes going through and prioritizing, giving some kind of just prioritization of each project. So that's something that we've taken to a new level this year. But what we find in the information that was presented third to council was here's the existing projects and what we believe their prioritization is. We gave them a number based on their health and safety, community support, funding that's available, various factors, criteria. And we did that for all the existing projects and as many projects as we could have on a list from the past 5 years. Like, so for example, Carmen Road Bridge is on that list. And Stevens Creek Boulevard Phase 2B is on that list. So the prioritization isn't I don't think it's a ranking per se, like this is the top project, this is the worst. It's more of a part of the conversation. These are projects we believe should be prioritized. And then we gut check it with council and yourselves in the community to say, are these projects the ones that we think are the most important? For example, sports center resurfacing. It may not be the highest prioritization on the matrix that we developed, but it needs to be done right now, because it's overdue and it has all sorts of reasons for doing the projects that we're doing it, and council approved that. So it's those projects are part of the conversation every year. We have to fight to keep them on the list, keep them as part of the conversation until they're like, if once we get done with 2A, for example, we'll be in a better position to do 2B. Because we're like, hey, we have the design, it's right here. And you've had community support for this for years. So that's a conversation that we'll be in a better place to have next year. Or the year after that.
It's just surprising to me to see that a project that has historically always had support as far as last year. And then all of a sudden it's like, oops, doesn't enjoy support anymore. So it's really surprising for me to read that.
So keep in mind City Hall. That's a prime example of got support. They developed a master plan that they spent millions of dollars on. And then they couldn't get it accomplished. We've been talking about it for 20 years. And we're finally making some progress on it. So that's gonna be true of a lot of projects.
I'm gonna just bring it back now to see if we have any input from the community on this topic. Do we have any speakers on this topic?
We have no speakers, Chair.
Wonderful, thank you. So gonna get it back to the commission for any discussion. I understand we do not have to make any motions tonight on this topic. This is really mostly for input and for our consumption, so to say, as well as for input that we may have. So there's no formal motion needed. Thank you for that. So I think we can just bring it back then the discussion. If there's any other remaining topics that we wanna cover. I mean, one of the things that strike to me is this sharp cliff in terms of money available for this year, kind of period 26, 27 to the following year. So is there a likelihood that those numbers will increase, or are we going to be pretty much solid on those numbers?
Everything we know about our funding, our revenue for the city for the next 10 years shows that I would not expect additional funds.
Because that would imply that any projects that would come from the ATP would need to be funded externally. Is that the way to think about?
It sounds very dire, but yes. I don't have a black and white answer for that. I don't know if David, Chad wanna chime in on that one.
I think for certain that with the community inputs, we would look at seeing what projects would be appropriate. Needing to shift some of our funding around, place that on a future CIP program. And then once council's kind of blessed that, we'll be looking for grant funds to offset those. Again, as stated, a lot of the bike pedestrian projects are heavily grants eligible. It's not the right word, but there's a lot of grant out there for bicycle. So.
Yeah.
I mean, that drop from $7 million to 2 and 1.7 caught my eye too. But the biggest one is, the city hall annex thing. That's
Yes,
$5 million.
yes, that is true.
So if you take that out,
That is true.
then it's about $2 million,
Mhm.
back every year,
Mhm.
in and around. So
So this is
yeah.
arbitration, yeah.
yeah, I gotta believe, that annex thing is, pre-approved long time ago, and it's being spent now as part of, that, whatever the expansion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's true. But still, it seems like probably kind of Apple and whoever can like
support some of these projects would be critical in kind of making progress. I mean, there's a lot of projects on the APP and a lot of effort in there. Hopefully, it's not gonna take us 5 years to start on those programs there.
But that's a valid point, how would we fund, things that come out of AD?
I think it's also worth noting, that a lot of the projects won't cost $1 million. They'll be striping projects, something that is easier.
Yes.
Most of the larger projects in the ATP are already in there. That's Harmon Bridge, that's the Maclean construction. It's already. Yes, that's part of it. It's the one that are.
Meaning it's that already funded or?
No, they're the one that are capital intensive, the real capital intensive projects in the ATP are already in the CIP. Most of them, like if I'm missing any. There's a, it's Stevens Bridge, maybe Maclean Bridge and Harmon Bridge, the two bridges.
Bridge is actually already active projects, so. The McClellan and Stevens Creek, yeah.
Question, and even in the unfunded transportation projects, I don't see, I mean, there's a mention of active transportation plan, but there is no mention of Vision Zero improvements that were a bunch of recommendations were there part of the recommendation, Vision Zero recommendations. Why is that? Because then you will never be able to get to the goal stated in that plan. Is it like we're not prioritizing that or not giving enough attention to what's going on?
I'm trying to get to that page. So this represents projects that have been proposed projects in the past, or that from my notes were proposed by the community in the past. If there's more Vision Zero projects, I'm not aware of them.
So the Vision Zero, couple of things. One, the Vision Zero is informing the active transportation plan. So we don't want to get ahead of the active transportation plan and put a lot of resources into Vision Zero because those priorities might be reshuffled as they're evaluated as part of the active transportation plan. The other aspect is we're still putting together a task force for the Vision Zero. And we don't want to get ahead of that either in terms of project. So there's still some pieces that need to fall into place before we will focus on project implementation specifically from Vision Zero. But most of the projects that you would be interested in Zero will show up in the active transportation plan and some. If they rise to the top of the priority list, then we'll move forward on it as we have the resources.
Because our active transportation plan, as I said earlier, will only cover pedestrians and bicycles. But Vision Zero covers multimodal transportation, right? We want to bring in zero for
Most of
all transportation.
Most of what is contained in Vision Zero are bicycle, pedestrian related. That's where most of the injuries and fatalities happen with bikes and heads. There's also speed related collisions, those sort of things. And we are addressing that in the active transportation plan as well. Corridors that are looking to be speed or red light running, monitoring, that sort of thing. So all those items that are really driving the KPIs in the Vision Zero plan will be represented more or less in the active transportation plan.
Or shouldn't we even bring it to the attention of the council? Like it's unfunded, right? So, but if there's no mention of it, like active transportation plan, still it's already been mentioned, right? Similarly, don't you have to mention that so that in future you will pay attention to what's in there and then bring it up either part of active transportation or other means.
I think, well, I don't know if it's maybe not in this particular narrative, but where we discuss the active transportation plan in our communications with council, we have talked about how the other plans, the Vision Zero, the local road safety plan, the previous bike ped plans all inform the development of the.
Okay, but yeah, my recommendation is at least, it should be in the list. we might prioritize and pick it up, because this is the list which is kind of varied over the years as well.
One thing I was wondering as well is, we talked a few times about technology improvements on intersections to do monitoring and various other things. Would this be a CIP or would this be another budget item that would be not captured here?
No, would those be CFP, Chad, technology, like the technology improvements that we're looking at?
You talk like about bicycle detection.
They are kind of capital improvements.
Depends on the nature of the technology, right? Are we gonna move it out there to physical improvements, in which case it's very possible, there'd be a CIP related product. If it's a software item, probably not. But it's gonna be one of those where we evaluate it to see where does it fall.
Yeah.
Right.
It's hard to say at this point without knowing exactly the particular technology that'll be. If it's minor technology, probably won't need to be a CFP if it involves a lot of infrastructure. But
And how would such a project be if it's not captured anywhere here in the document? So it basically is flying under the radar, or how that doesn't seem to be like then considered even for the next 5 years, if I see this correctly.
Will those technology improvements be in the ATP?
they will be in the ATP.
That not sufficient for now?
But do you have specific intersection improvements in ETPL?
The corridors. They're
Corridors, yeah, technology. There's 4 items in there. That is true. Yeah. I see. Okay. Well, we're all looking forward, I think, when the ATP is finalized and hopefully drive some projects up there. Any other final comments and suggestions or questions from the commission?
I have one general question. As far as like the seismic, is it like the seismic retrofit of the city hall? Are they just basically, bulldoze the place? Would that in the end, would that end up on the CIP project list?
It is part of CIP, and I made a choice to keep it outside of the kind of daily accounting. This is the kind of what we expect to see, because it is such a special CIP project. It's overall, we estimate it to be a $55 million project. So it kind of blows everything out of the water. So I've been just accounting for it separately, and I did, if you look at the last few pages of the staff, well, it's not a staff report, of the report that we published before the meeting, I've included that text from the staff report that we did in March that talks about the City Hall project was approved in December to add $2.5 million. So we have now a $3 million budget to go out and hire architects and engineers to take it to the next level of analysis and conceptual design, get a good cost, and get us ready to go to design build. So that's all happening. It's part of the CIP, but it's kind of, I was tracking them separate.
And honestly, when it comes to City Hall, there's a lot of other elephants in the room, such as the sheriff's contract. We don't know if the City Hall project's gonna come to fruition over the next couple of years. There's a lot of unknowns. We're accounting for it, as can be seen in the report, but we haven't plugged into the overall CIP, because council hasn't said, yes, build. They've said, yes, go look at a design. So that's kind of why you don't see that in there. If city council does sometime this year say, yes, we want to proceed with construction, and they provide us the budgeting, you'll start seeing it in that. Just complicated.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Susan, for.
One additional question. So it seems like it's $2 million a year going out as far as we can see. Is that a correct statement?
That's our budgeting criteria. And if there's a special need that comes up, then we'll take that request to the council, to the, finance department. But that's what we try to maintain.
Yeah, I guess I bring this up in the context of our, I guess I can talk about this, that when we were discussing the ATP, we're talking about the scoring criteria. And one of the things we did, one of the things, the scoring criteria, you get dinged if you're, I mean, you get scored additional points if it's below $500,000. And like no points if it's above a certain level. It seems to me like those projects that are above that level, if we're talking about, we can get, 85% funding, then they might get kicked way down in the ATP prioritization list. At the same time, we might be able to do those projects because you can get outside funding, and in the end, it won't cost, it costs less, they might be less than $500,000. So I'm a little, I made a proposal, I brought this up when we were talking about the ATP last, I think it was 2 months ago. But I hate to see a project get kicked down in the list, prioritization list, simply because it's expensive, more expensive than, say, striping or putting paint on, but you want to see those projects get a fair shake. But that's what I'm concerned with. Now you have a bunch of projects that we really want to do, they get pushed down. Same time we're saying here, there's no way you, with $2 million a year, you gotta have outside funding. So why penalize those projects?
I feel like everything will have to be funded externally. I mean, the way it looks like, there's no money available for any projects, as far as I can see here. That's what my earlier question pretty much, the answer to my earlier question was pretty much confirming that.
But you do have a little bit of money going out at year 4 and 5, you could do some, it looks like 300,000 and 5 or 600,000. It's, and I just wanted to bring that up.
But if some project really interests the community and the council, they might approve outside of this budget. Right, it's not realistic to 2 million. Right? That can be brought up, I'm assuming, outside of, it can be a separate line item going to the council for approval, right?
Historically, most of the pricier bike projects that we have built in the past have had a substantial portion of grants on them.
Yeah.
So the reality is, we would need that in order to move forward a lot of those bigger projects. And if we see an opportunity, different grants have different focuses. And if we see an opportunity for a specific project based upon
Grant
the focus of a
opportunity.
specific grant,
Yeah,
and council gives us the okay to apply for it,
that makes.
that would push a project up, even if it was lower in the list because of it's
Again,
expensive. The opportunity would raise it if we had the money.
We talked about this before, the list of the scoring, first of all, it's not even on the agenda tonight, but it's not a binding agreement. It's not like the council has delivered.
It's a guide. It's all of it.
Choices, whatever they want. So I don't, we shouldn't cover this tonight because this is not even on the agenda.
And also the funding projected for 4 years is based on what we know at this point, right? So there's no notion of, let's set aside some slush funds for future unknown projects.
Yeah.
Right? That's not how it works, right? So you can only budget for know what you know, but I'm sure there will be things that will come up along the way, and they will be discussed and considered, where to get the money from and whatnot. Right?
And I think a real opportunity to start grant opportunities as fast as we can. I mean, I think that's really the way. It sounds like those projects will be highly opportunistic for those funding opportunities. And so that's good.
No,
Anyway, thank you so much, Susan, for the presentation and for sharing kind of the state. I'm closing this item then and moving on to item number 3 on the agenda tonight, which is staff update and commission activity report. Anything from your side, David, tonight?
I'll just note that the construction on the 280 beginning. They've done some tree removals and they're gonna be for removing the median on some other factors that are uncertain right now. But you'll start generating some out there. I don't have a lot of more detailed information at this point about project schedule or impact, so I'll keep the commission updated.
So David, on that interchange, right? The ramp stuff, right? So there was a discussion about that having, that interchange having in the exit to, you know, that low income housing that's coming there, right?
There's no direct access during private development.
Because, no, the low income housing or something that's being built there, either two entry and exits. And there was a thought of, you know, opening the wall, but no, the community there said, you know, no, we can't open the wall. So I believe, you know, Caltrans eventually, you know, conceded, you know, opening the two entries and exits, you know, one from Wolf and the other one from, you know, that.
Calvin's has not backed down on that yet. So
Okay.
actually, we're meeting with them on Friday.
Okay,
Well, we're still trying to get their thumbs up for this emergency vehicle access. Well, after and if we can get Caltrans approval, it still needs to go to the Federal Highway Administration. Or we can actually do that. So there's still some work associated.
because my understanding, you know, was that, you know, Caltrans agreed, so there is no concern of, you know, having to break the wall, which is, you know, like the community was not in favor of. So that's the,
That is not happening.
okay,
Wish Caltrans. They have
Okay.
not yet.
they're not,
We're still working on
okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner updates?
Just want to remind everybody, I guess the bike to work, event is next month.
Yeah, May, I know, what's the
Yeah.
exact,
Hey, is it, May 14th? Is that my?
what day is that?
Should be in the mid.
Is it before the company?
Yeah, it's the 14th.
Thursday, so
What day is that?
that's a Thursday, May 14th.
Thursday?
So could we just say, I'm leading it up, but just want to make sure I understand who's going to be participating on.
So what time is it on the 14th?
So it goes from, the station goes from 7 to 10 in the morning. And I get there at 6:30, the city drops off their equipment. I mean,
We'll drop it off that morning.
morning, 2 canopies and chairs, tables. And then typically we provide like, you know, water, energy bars, you know, coffee. So I just was looking for any feedback about who would be willing to work and to actually you know, donate, or, you know, we have $100 reimbursement. Is that correct, David? So you can get reimbursed up to one total of $100.
Yes, not each.
Trying to recruit more, to get more for $100.
I said that you can
Good job.
still get the $100 of that. I said I'll donate the energy bars,
Okay.
like, yeah,
Thank you.
cereal bars, yeah. I'll get that.
And
And then I'll join on the like 8:30 or so, because I have a
Okay.
78, but then I can come after that. By the time I get ready and come, it'll be
all right, great.
8:30 or so, yeah.
Yeah, so I can do 8:30 onwards. So also. So let me know where I need to come and join. Okay.
It's at the southeast corner of Stevens Creek and Stelly, and you'll see it. I mean,
Stevens Creek and Sterling, so.
and we typically park in the church parking lot.
That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, McClellan. This is
McClellan.
Before. it was
This is the
before.
problem with getting old.
Yeah.
McClellan is in Stelling, and
Okay, so
southeast
it's
corner.
St. Jude's.
There's St. Jude's Church right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Usually we get permission to park in the parking lot.
Yeah, it's a walkable distance,
Yeah.
so I'll do that.
And if whatever you could, you know, sometimes if you, I'm just trying to think if you would like to bring something that cyclists are interested in. What do you?
Bananas are good.
Bananas are good. Yes, and banana.
Okay. So it's good to know who is getting what, so that no, we don't end up with, you know,
Yeah.
the same.
Energy bars.
Yeah.
You would do.
I can get bananas. Yeah.
And
So how many? 100, 1,000?
you know, usually
I'm trying to get an
we usually
idea.
get about 60 riders,
Okay,
and they don't always, and you give away those tote bags.
Yeah.
And not everybody takes a tote bag and not everybody takes a banana or water or energy bar usually. I mean, that's it. So it's, I would say 30. 30 is probably about right.
Okay, yeah.
And typically if you get like 20, 30 in a pack,
Mhm.
I don't think
Yeah,
everything, it doesn't run out.
yeah. I just want to get an idea. 30 is not.
I can get the toffee.
Okay. And what time could you,
So I need to talk to my wife. I may have, I can come early and then I may have to drop my kids to school. And then,
that would be good, because I would like somebody to help me set up.
yeah, I'll be out there early then.
Okay.
And then after, I think around 8:30 or so, I probably have to.
Okay.
Is there a dress code for that? No.
You can wear your biking outfit.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Necktie, if you want to, you can.
If you want to, yeah, very casual.
And
City doesn't provide any t-shirts.
Put it on the calendar.
Yeah. You get one with the, you get one there.
Okay.
You get the t-shirt, right?
they give 2 T-shirts. I think 1 year you got one. Cool.
Yeah, I think so.
So it goes from 8:30 to till what time?
It goes from 7 to 10.
10.
10.
I'll be 8:30 to 10.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I will be in New York that week. I mentioned this last time already. And it hasn't changed. All right, thank you so much for that. Do we have any other?
Any update of some VTA?
No, I was not able to run the beach meeting.
Okay.
I know that, I think what's relevant for Cupertino is I saw that there is something around the Foothill Expressway, there's design survey that was floated around in order to improve pedestrian and cycling ways that. Does it impact Cupertino at all? I mean, directly impacts Cupertino, but are we like into the Foothill Boulevard, is it going to be like?
I think it finished at Crystal Del Rey, right? So that's the borderline for
Yeah.
the study.
This is the expressway study.
Yes.
Yeah, it little tiny piece of Cupertino. Yeah, and we are involved in the multi-jurisdictional group.
I mean, it would be nice if there is a change that's gonna be driving in that segment to Crystal Del Rey to continue that to at least Stevens Creek Boulevard.
That would be a different effort
Right.
from the,
There would be a Cupertino only effort then, I guess, because the other one is driven by the VTA. Right.
But you still want something that is like consistent.
Yeah, that was my point. Yeah.
I think today's the last day you can give some feedback online about the project.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you want to put in feedback, today's
Okay, so online.
it's online. The 15th, I think, is it.
Yeah.
Is that correct, Irving?
Like controversy section.
All right. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Then we're gonna close this item number 3 here. And moving on to future agenda setting. So this is usually our review of future agenda items with the opportunity to add, remove, or change.
I had a request from a resident on Prospect who wants to have the city install a crosswalk across Prospect, halfway or so between the ends of both Stelling. And so that's, I informed the resident that would probably need to come before the bike commission before we could do anything, especially since it kind of falls in the middle of our ATP development process. So
So let's add.
I'd like to put that on.
Yeah.
Is it a mid block? Is it
It would be located at an intersection, but it's an uncontrolled intersection because there's no traffic lights between the ends of them. And so it's like halfway, like a Via Cal, one of those small streets that goes in.
So it would be a pedestrian crossing or what?
Is it already included in the ATP?
It's a location in the,
Where is it?
it's a spot of it.
Then should we really take it up as a separate agenda?
I told them I would bring this to the commission so we can at some point decide if we want to agenda. or put the ATP press or.
We can leave it on here on this.
Number that.
Decide.
The other one that I think we talked last time that came up in the context of the safe house discussion, that the challenges with e-bikes, so I think it probably would be appropriate that we kind of have a session talking about e-bikes.
So there will be a community meeting on May sixth.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah.
But should the commission also have a specific kind of session of in discussion on e-bike?
Yeah, we can add it. I'd recommend not doing anything until after the May sixth meeting though, just so we can.
Yeah, nothing will happen before the end.
Some feedback from a resident who complained about Wilson Park and e-bikes, motos, driving very fast on in Wilson Park, so on.
Yeah,
I encourage you all to attend that meeting.
yeah, I think it's worthwhile to keep it on as to add it on as an item here.
Yeah, I see people on e-bikes, like they're just, zooming through on the pedestrian.
Yeah, there's lots of issues. I think there's lots of issues.
Education, right?
E-bike education, e-bike discussion. Let's say e-bike discussion.
E-bike discussion, yeah, that's the right. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Well, in light of our speakers today, would putting something on the agenda about, I guess it's like might be a complicated issue about planting native plants along the Redneck Creek Trail. Does that fall within our?
Body water.
Is that a Parks and Rec topic or is it?
It's,
I think I could probably answer that. We don't have control of that property that's owned by Valley Water. They have full control over anything that's planted in there and anything that we do. So I think to a certain extent, I was going to speak with folks after this meeting and provide you a Valley Water contact. Because anything we do in there has to have their approval.
Yeah.
And now that we saw the Tamiyan Inu designs, so speaking of Valley Water, Tamiyan Inu is like moving forward. Is that? Are there something that we can talk about? Is it something that is there a design that is finalized or how?
I don't know the status on that. We should have a first pass of that design sometime in the next month or two. So that may be something that we can bring David to kind of get.
Yeah.
It would be great.
Yeah. It's already on here as an item, as a listed item here.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to highlight it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we get those plans.
Once it's ready, we will bring it back to the commission. Yeah.
And we'll bring it before they're too ready. I'm sure you guys have an opportunity to kind of provide some thoughts.
Sounds good. Before it's implemented.
Basically, for their 100% drawings, we'll try and bring it.
All right. Anything else? If not, then I want to thank for the discussion and for the input. I think we are closing this item as well. The next next commission meeting is May 20, which is in about a month from now. I'm adjourning this meeting at 9. It's a record time, huh? Wow.